The Mannin Line with Beth Espy.
Well, first am I, good afternoon. This is the Mannin Line on Manx Radio. It's Beth sitting in for Andy for the next few days. And on today's programme, we're joined by the Chair of Manx Utilities, Rob Callister. It was just under a week ago we heard electricity prices were going to rise by 30%, a staggered increase, 15% at the start of next month, 15% again in July. What are your thoughts on this? I suppose only to be expected. The cost of everything is going up, but what impact will it have on you and your finances? 66 13 68 is the number to call. You can also watch us live on Manx Radio's Facebook and YouTube channels, and we are here until 1 p.m. Any questions? 66 13 68. Well, as I mentioned, with the cost of everything going up, it wasn't very surprising when we heard last week that electricity bills would be going up by that 30%. As I say, 15% at the start of next month, which is actually a week on Friday, and then 15% again in July. Now, government claims doing it in stages will reduce the impact on households and businesses. Rob Callister is Chair of Manx Utilities. Lovely to have you here, Rob. Thank you so much. With all due respect, though, it's not so much reducing the impact, is it, rather than delaying the inevitable?
Yeah, I think we should step back and, just to a year, last year when, we were paying around 50 pence per therm. We purchase around 40 million therms a year at Manx Utilities. 30 million is used for domestic use. And we were paying a very steady 50 pence a unit, and that had been steady for around 10 years. And then suddenly last year it started to become very volatile, and then towards Christmas we were paying over 750 pence a unit. That price today has come down to 250 pence a unit, and but that's still 5 times what we were paying last year. At the organisation's done a fantastic job, I feel, to manage the situation over the last year, especially during the winter months. We knew how this was going to affect people. We'd hedged over the last financial year nearly 70% of a supply at around 50 pence a unit to protect our customers. But the volatility for the remaining 30% almost cost us the same amount as the 70% originally cost us.
I suppose so. We always hear this word volatility, don't we? And we always seem to have the impact when the prices go up. Very, very rarely does it happen the other way round. Do prices go down when that volatility calms itself? And I just wonder what you think this says about the vision of our government when it comes to our fuel security.
Well, I think I'm just going to pick up on one particular point. I think it's worth me actually putting on the record that electricity prices on the island have been steady. I mean, since 2017, electricity prices on the island have only increased by 5.5%, so 5.5% in almost 5 years. I mean, we've also introduced a pricing strategy that was approved by Tynwald in 2018, which was very clear, very transparent. We are very conscious of our customers, and that's why we've taken on so much financial burden in the last 12 months to actually shield our customers from the brunt of what's happened over the last 12 months. But as we go into a new financial year, that price, the wholesale price of natural gas, has not started to come down, and that is why we've had to introduce a 30% increase to our customers. And I would just like to add that the increases are being staged. First 15% will come in on the 1st of April. The second increase will come in the 1st of July. But just to be very clear to your listeners, both of those increases will be at today's rate. So it's not 15% on the 1st of April and then suddenly 15 added onto the April price. No, both 15% is actually being applied to today's rate.
I suppose the problem is for Manx customers, though, is we don't have a choice, do we? We are essentially held to ransom because we don't have any choice of supplier.
I think, yes, there is a monopoly, but again, as I've said, we are very, very conscious of how much profit that we actually make within the organisation, how much those tariffs have increased. And as I say, I'll just repeat it, our tariffs have only increased, electricity tariffs have only increased by 5.5% in the last 5 years. That's pretty good.
But by the end of July, that'll be 35.5%, won't it? Rob, can I just ask you to pop your headphones on because we can go to the lines now. And on line 2, we have Julian. Good afternoon, Julian.
Oh, hi, Beth. It's like a two-part question, actually. First one is, the price increases for electricity are based on the gas prices, but the vast majority of our gas is imported from Norway. So I'm just wondering why Norway's got a problem with giving us the price that we normally have. I know there's some disputes going on, but I mean, it's by far and away our biggest supplier. And the second part of the question is, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but Pulrose generated 514 gigawatt hours of power last year, so 514, and Walney Wind Farm has been posted at 1,300 gigawatts. So I just wanted to get an idea about the wind farm and what it's making as well over there, because we're talking about wind farms here. That, from the face of it, looks like Pulrose generated 40% of what 18,000-acre, 189 wind turbine farm generated. Am I right with that? If you could clear that one for me.
Okay, I think the first question is why was we Manx Utilities is paying a significant price increase for our natural gas at the moment. I think the answer to that, Julian, is the fact that we are tapping into a global market, and it is absolutely, there is an energy crisis at the moment, an energy pricing crisis. I don't think there's a supply issue, it's just the pricing. In respect to Pulrose, I really can't comment on that. I can tell you that, the one thing that this particular energy pricing crisis has highlighted, the fact is that there is a serious push now to look at renewables, how the Isle of Man generates its electricity. And I only last week we had a meeting with the Climate Change Transformation Board, and that was along with our colleagues from DEFRA and DOI. And there's absolutely a 100% focus now for us to really seriously look at our renewable options. And we are looking at 3 different projects. We're looking at the small projects, we're looking at the network resilience and security, and we're also looking at clean generation. And I'm hoping over the next 4 years and over the next 8 years, people of the island will see a significant change to how much electricity is generated from renewables in that 8-year period.
Rob, can I just ask you then how Manx Utilities will cope with increased self-energy generation among the public? That's going to further erode the income.
It is, but this is a start, and it's fascinating for me to be the chair of Manx Utilities as we start this journey. And I know some people will say that, maybe we should have looked at this 8 or 10 or 15 years ago. As I've said, Manx, the actual price for natural gas has been very stable for 10 years. But if nothing else, the energy pricing crisis at the moment has highlighted the need to look at alternative options. And I'm extremely grateful to the amount of businesses and individuals that have contacted me in this very short period of time that I've been chairman to go and look at projects in the north, in the south, in the west of the island that actually want to start looking at this renewable options. And I'm fascinated by this journey. And I think people will see a significant change over the next few years.
Julian, any other questions?
In some way, I suppose, are we paying for Europe's mistake in making them completely reliant on Russia for gas? Because if we're getting all ours from Norway, that's not really our problem, is it? In one sense.
It's a global market, as I've said, Julian. We have a connector that goes from the UK to Ireland. We tap into that. We bring in the natural gas. But when we actually go to the market to purchase our natural gas, we are still subject to the volatility of the worldwide market. And unfortunately, that's what's happened over the last 12 months. There's not a supply issue, I think, as you've already said, but there is a pricing issue. And at the moment, even this morning when I looked, the market price is still over 250 pence a unit. And that's still 5 times as much as we were paying last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for your call there, Julian. Just a couple of questions that have come in on the text messages. Ken asks why the standing charge increase hasn't been mentioned. It will increase, he says, from 52.2 pence per day on July the 1st.
The standing charges there's a 5% increase. So if you take electricity, there'll be a 5% increase on electricity and a 25% in respect of the tariff. Sewerage water has all increased by 5% from the 1st of April. That is in line with the Tynwald strategy paper that was approved in 2018. So again, as I've said, it's very clear, very transparent. People know that, and it is based on the CPI figure of September of each year.
What are going to be the implications for the repayment of the MUA loan?
are we talking about the bonds? Okay, we have 2 bonds that are due to repay. That's in 2030 and 2034. I think the larger one is due in 2034. And I think, to be perfectly honest, the previous boards, and as I say, we've got a very professional executive board, which I'm really pleased to have around me. And we have a workforce of 360 officers that are very dedicated, professional. And to be fair, the previous boards have done everything they can to protect, to make sure that we meet those payment dates of the bonds. In fact, we're slightly ahead off the curve to meet those bond repayments, and that's not due to my good work, but that's due to the diligence and hard work of the executives and the previous boards. So I applaud what they've done to keep us on track to meet those obligations.
Well, we'll go back to the lines now, and on line 1, all being well, I think we've got Roger. Roger, you there? Hello? Oh, no, can't seem to get Roger. I can see he's there. Hello? No, can't hear Roger there at the moment, so we'll just come back to that. Let's go to some of the text messages there. Barry says the MEA should never have been built, that ridiculous power station. It looks like a hotel. It's still being paid down. Who on earth thought that was needed? A power station that looks like a power station would have been fine and not burden the Manx public with the colossal debt of that vanity project. It's my view, says Barry, we need a full inquiry into who spent this money and why. We've been led by people that are grossly incompetent and continue to be so. Grim isn't the word. Heads should roll. And I think there is that perception out there, isn't there, Rob? And I think people feel hard done by because of that.
I think as all of the Manx population, you know, the sort of events around the unauthorised loans, the power station, everything else, they're well documented. I think, you know, we have to look towards the future. There's nothing we can do. Those obligations have to be paid back in 2030, 2034. We'll get them paid and we'll move on. But as you say, it's well documented, those particular chain of events.
I think we have got Roger now on line 1, all being well. We're having a slight technical issue here. Roger, can you hear me? I think my phone system has decided today is the day not to work, but never mind. What's happening, Rob, with the smart meter rollout?
Yeah, I mean, the smart meter rollout, obviously there's been a slight delay with COVID and everything else, but we have been undertaking a pilot scheme with around 230 smart meters. But I'm hoping that we will be rolling out the actual scheme from next month. I mean, the MUA, has looked at it, and what we're going to actually do is we're going to start with the pay-as-you-go customers from next month. It's a 4-year project to get everybody changed over, and the cost is around £18 million. But I'm hoping people will transfer over because I think it's a great scheme. I mean, that the actual meters that we have in our homes today are no longer being built, so we do need to swap over, and I think now is the time to do that. It gives people more information about if they just want to leave the box and ignore it, they can do. But if they want to engage with it, if they want to actually look at their usage and maybe change their behaviours, then there's an app which will support that package, and they'll be able to use that as well. So yeah, hopefully people will start to see information from next month.
You're listening to the Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're with Chair of Manx Utilities, Rob Callister. Your Ramsey Bakery time, 12:20.
With just 2 games of the regular season to go, FC Isle of Man continue their charge for promotion this weekend. The Ravens face Stockport Town at the Bowl this Saturday, knowing 3 points will be crucial ahead of the NWCFL Division 1 South playoffs. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Steve Burns for FC Isle of Man versus Stockport Town, kicking off at 6:30pm this Saturday. Manx Radio will be providing full live match commentary on our AM 1368 and digital platforms.
Dave's barely slept a wink for days, tossing and turning all night, worrying about that new automated garage door he needs. Well, luckily for him and his wife, he's finally found the Garage Door and Gate Automation Company, the only specialist on the island with a fully staffed showroom and manufacturer-trained team for top-quality, fully guaranteed work. And they don't take a penny till the job's complete. So don't lose sleep over making the right choice. Visit manxgaragedoors.com. Sleep tight, Dave.
qplus.co.il For your new bathroom, visit Q Plus, the largest bathroom showroom on the island, with over 50 stunning displays from leading brands, including hundreds of bathroom fittings, tiles and flooring. Q Plus provide free design and 4D virtual display, so you can really see how your new bespoke bathroom will look. Visit Snugborough Trading Estate or see online. Q Plus, you imagine, we design.
Loving, caring, fabulous.
Your nation station, Manx Radio, and Love IOM have got together to give you the chance to win your mum a £100 Love IOM gift card and a beautiful bunch of flowers to be delivered on Mother's Day.
Strong, determined, unstoppable.
Just text the 3 words that best describe your mum to 166177 between the 21st and 25th of March. Then be listening to Super Gold Sunday on the 27th to find out who's won. The Love IOM gift card, the perfect gift for your mum this Mother's Day. Buy online at loveiom.com.
My best friend.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Beth Espy.
Your Ramsey Bakery time, 12:22, and we're joined in the studio by Chair of Manx Utilities, Rob Callister. And we can go to the lines now. And can you hear me, Roger? Are you there?
Hello, Beth.
Hello. Sorry about all of that. What would you like to ask, Rob?
Well, it's with his responsibility for sewage on the island as Chair of Manx Utilities. Your board will be considering five solutions from the projects team as to what to do with the current despicable outgoings of sewage effluent into Peel and Laxey Bay. Now, my interest as a resident of Garth is in Laxey, and what a considerable number of local residents are suggesting is that we pump the effluent from Laxey via pipe, just pump it away to Onchan and join in with the Iris scheme. And what I'm phoning for, Mr. Callister, is to urge you to seriously consider that solution with your board.
Okay, Roger, good afternoon, and thank you for the question. I think, again, when we look at Iris and we look at the regional sewerage structure, these conversations have been going on since 1990. I think back then they obviously looked originally at one scheme for the whole island. They then came back to Tynwald and approved a regional structure. And you're absolutely right. I was looking at this last night. In 2007, it did say that Laxey and Buldrine could be connected into Onchan. However, the last, in 2009, in Tynwald, Tynwald supported a regional option for both Peel and Garth. Now, I think the one thing you have said is absolutely right. This has been going on far too long. We do need to find a solution for both Laxey, Buldrine and the surrounding area, and the same for Peel and its surrounding area. And we need these solutions to be fully resolved and implemented and started in this administration. And that's something I definitely want to do. The conversations have started. We're working with all the stakeholders. But as I say, I'm mindful that the last Tynwald resolution was of 2009, and that was for a regional. So if we are to change that in any way, we will need Tynwald's approval. So we are looking at all the options at the moment, Roger.
Thank you. But that Tynwald resolution could be reversed if there was the will there. And you'll remember, Rob, that you were chair of the Environmental and Infrastructure Policy Review Committee. And your committee then, in the last administration, produced a very critical report of regional sewage operation, particularly in the Peel area. Now, it seems to me that that has largely been ignored by that Tynwald resolution.
Our committee report came significantly after the original Tynwald resolution. I think, if I remember right, the debate, we lost that debate, but you're absolutely right. Those findings and that particular report only focused in on Peel. It made no reference to Laxey or the surrounding area.
Yeah, that's correct, but the principle is still the same. It was a regional solution to it. And,
yes.
That's what we don't want as far as certain residents of Laxey Bay are concerned, we don't want that in Laxey Bay because we don't want any sort of discharge into the bay at Garwick and at Laxey, because there are two outfalls in that particular bay, and we want people to come to Laxey Bay, enjoy it and swim. And on a day like today, that's what they will be doing, I hope, but not with the current treatment of sewage.
We're absolutely looking at all the options at the moment. I think from the people that I've spoke to in both catchment areas, they want a solution found and they want them to be implemented. We're looking at the costs, we're looking at the sites. I'm hoping we'll be able to have those recommendations ready sooner rather than later so we can start to get this change. You're absolutely right. We shouldn't be discharging any raw sewage into our beaches anymore, and that has to be changed and implemented as fast as possible. But I am mindful of what Tynwald has already asked us to do. As I said, we're looking at the costs, looking at the options, and hopefully we'll be able to come public.
The cost should take secondary importance against affecting the health of recreational water users.
Well, as I've said previously, I think we've got to factor in all of the different elements of this, including the stakeholders, including the people who live in these areas. But I will just put on record, even if we actually do manage to, say, for example, pump away from Laxey, there's still no guarantees that Laxey's water will actually meet the blue bathing water standards. And I know I've heard your comments on the radio previously, because there's so much comes off the land during certain times of the year. So these are all of the discussions that we've got to have. But you're absolutely right. We've got to find a solution, and that solution's got to be implemented as a priority in this administration.
But the pump away solution would provide a better resolution than what you seem to be suggesting at the moment.
Well, if you take the committee report that I was chairman of, which looked at the West solution, if you actually pumped back, it gave you a marginal, a tiny better bathing quality. But again, that doesn't guarantee you'll meet the standards of the blue flag status, which is overseen by the DEFA department and not Manx Utilities. So there's different arguments to be had.
That's unfortunately something that was changed with the regulations and less stringent regulations than the blue flag status, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's something that needs to be tackled as well.
But we
want to see people enjoying and using Laxey Bay. It can be a tourist attraction.
Absolutely. Both Laxey and Peel are absolutely fantastic places for people to go and have a coffee, to enjoy the surrounding area. My focus on the next few years is to actually make sure something is recommended and implemented and started in this administration.
Roger, thank you very much for your call. I think possibly the problem, Rob Callister, is we seem to spend so many times looking at solutions and there doesn't seem to be very much action.
Well, I think it's very complex, but I think, again, as I said, this conversation started in 1990. Most of the island is connected. There's just these two final areas. People are pretty much split in their opinion. I think the people I've spoke to, the majority of people I spoke, both in the West and especially in Laxey and Baldrine, is saying they just want a solution. They want something implemented in this administration. OK,
we're going back to the lines now, and on line 2 is Howard. Good afternoon, Howard.
Afternoon, Beth and Mr. Callister. Just a question going back to the electricity. The power station in Douglas, it has a shelf life of not many more years, according to the government and to various other rumours. I can't remember the exact date. It's supposed to be come to the end of its useful life. But also we have the connector cable coming from Bispam. And that has been in, it must be at least 20 years plus. What is the lifespan of that cable? Because not only does it carry electricity to the island and from the island, but it also has a multitude of fibre optic cables, which is essential for interconnectors for business on the island. So what is the projected lifespan of that particular cable? And if it is working towards the perfect storm with the power station and that coming to an end, are there any provisions in the pipeline for a replacement?
OK, thank you for your question, Howard. First one, the AC connector cable. that has got a very long life on it, so it's absolutely fine. There's no concerns on that. The question that what we've been having initial discussions with the Climate Change Transformation Board is, do we actually, as an island, implement a second interconnector? And that discussion's already started. So the first one, absolutely, there's no problems with that in respect of its life expectancy. It goes well into the future at the moment. In respect to Pulrose Power Station, you're absolutely right, there is a shelf life on that. But as far as I understand from the discussions I've had, that can be extended significantly as we go through the transition. So at this present moment in time, there's no concerns. I think what's going to be the sort of catalyst of change is the pricing, because we do use, as I've said, 40 million therms of natural gas to generate our electricity. The big question is, how does the island generate its electricity in the future, but how do we get a stable supply to meet the demands of our customers?
Well, the thing, not so very long ago with the EU, France was threatened to cut off Jersey's electricity. And this is where I was thinking on the power station how we should be independent in that sense, because we have a lot of people here and a lot of businesses and a lot of electricity users, shall we say. And an island of our size should be independent, because although it never happened, that threat from France to Jersey was very real at the time. And, the Bispham cable, that was a backup. I remember it going in. I saw them doing it. But, and I know there are cables underground here on the island that are considerably older than that, so it was only just a reassurance. But what is the possibility of replacing the gas turbine engines down in the power station with new modern gas turbines? Because there's nothing wrong with the structure, the building itself. They must be able to take the old engines out one at a time and replace them with new.
Yeah, I think you're right, but these are discussions that have only just started, so we're very much at the beginning of this journey. There may be a second use for the Pulrose Power Station where we don't have to burn or use natural gas as the way of generating electricity. I think your concerns are valid with regard to the second AC connector. If we do put one in, do we go into Ireland? Do we go back into the UK for a second cable, or do we go to an alternative place such as Scotland? I think the main thing is we're going to need a suite of options on the island. We're going to need renewables. We're going to need solar. We're going to need tidal. We're going to need wind as alternative renewables. But at the same time, I'm almost certain we're going to need at least one, if not two, possibly even three AC connectors to the Isle of Man to make sure that our 42,000 domestic customers and 6,000 business customers have that viability, and the actual service itself is continuing whatever time of day, especially when so many people are now transferring over to electricity as an alternative supply.
Howard, thank you very much indeed for your call this afternoon. It's interesting, isn't it, talking about renewables. We've had so much talk over the years about harnessing wind, tidal, solar energy. Surely all the talk could actually have produced enough electricity for the whole of the Isle of Man. £42 million is waiting to be spent on the climate agenda, as we heard in the budget. Would it be fair to suggest this could be used to provide direct support for people who are really struggling at the moment, rather than potentially just setting up groups to talk more about climate change? Yeah,
that is a common comment that I've received over the last few weeks. I think the problem is we've got to go back to what I said originally. This energy pricing crisis has actually exposed the volatility to our energy system. If we don't spend the money today, we're going to have to spend it tomorrow. Maybe we should have spent it yesterday. We need to be looking at our dominance around fossil fuels and moving over to renewables, because we are absolutely held to ransom at the moment over the pricing of fossil fuels. So we do need to spend the money, and we do need to invest in alternative supply, and we do need to make sure that a lot more of our renewables is made here on the Isle of Man, because a lot of corporate businesses are now asking for renewable energy. So there is a very clear change. If nothing else, in the last 12 months, there has been a clear change. And I know when people talk about Crogger and the site just off Macclesfield, to be perfectly honest, if that was ready to drill today, I think most of the island would say absolutely go for it. But
would you say go for it?
I'm not too sure myself, because it comes down to what point it comes online, because it's not possibly, it's going to be at least 4 or 5 years away. The island will have significantly changed. And as I'm hoping as the MUA chair, that our renewables have changed as well. And the amount of electricity that we generate on the island over the next 4 to 8 years will change significantly.
You're listening to the Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your Ramsey Bakery time, 12:35. We'll be back after this.
For your new bathroom, head to Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley. In Pacesetter's fully fitted showroom, you'll find the latest bathroom products and designs, from new contemporary styles to traditional Victorian tiles, wall and ceiling panels, accessories and much more. With many ranges exclusive to Pacesetters, plus professional design advice from the experts, visit Pacesetter, Harris Terrace, Douglas or Spring Valley.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
Did you know that installing a new efficient gas boiler can actually save you money on your gas bill? Manx Gas offers modern, ultra-efficient boilers with smart controls you can use via an app. It means you can be in control of your heating wherever you are. And even better, Manx Gas offers interest-free payments over 5 years, so you can spread the cost. Call Manx Gas on 64444 to find out more.
We don't talk about Bruno, no.
Okay, so let's talk about the West End Easter School instead. Stage Ed are back to give all kids across the island from 6 to 18 the chance to work with musical theatre pros for a fun-filled week of singing, dancing and acting. Then strut your stuff on stage in front of family and friends. Visit stage-ed.com now for details and booking. The Stage Ed West End Easter School, 11th to the 16th of April. Supported by your nation station, Manx Radio.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
From the Zaire to Lonnon, online, on smartphone apps, and on AM and FM. This is Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Beth Espy.
And we're joined in the studio today by Chair of Manx Utilities, Rob Callister. Rob, we're going to go through some of the text messages we've received in. G says, Mr. Callister, as fuel duties drop because we'll all be using electric vehicles or bikes, will road toll or other charges be introduced like those now being looked at in the UK?
Yeah, I think that's another discussion, how we raise road tax in the future. We are in that transition. I think when more and more cars are being purchased via, electric cars being purchased, then obviously the way the government collects the tax to repair our roads will change, obviously.
Now, this is one that's come in from Concern from Colby. It says, please ask the chair of the MUA, Rob Callister, to clarify when the new tariffs apply. I think you might have already done this. You stated on social media that the new tariff applies as and when the meters are read. The MUA are refusing to do interim meter reads. So if you have an estimated bill recently, it's important to get an actual reading, or you may be billed on the new tariff for usage accrued under the old rate. And the same applies to those whose actual readings fall within the past 21 days. Can you clarify that for us?
Yeah, it may be. The first question is, we have over 42,000 customers, so not everybody gets read on the same day. As far as I understand, is when your meter is read, proper reading, then the new tariffs will apply from that. So some people, not everyone, will be getting the increases straight away. They will be phased over that period of time. If anyone really has got any concerns about how they're being billed and everything else, then I think it's absolutely right that they just contact our fantastic customer service team, and I'll give the number, and that number is 687675, or email accounts@manxutilities.im. I will also mention, if anyone does have any serious concerns about the increases, then we also provide a home energy officer that will visit your home or business and provide very much helpful advice, and that service is free. So again, just contact our customer service team. They will be very happy to help, and I'm extremely grateful. We saw a 20% increase in our calls to our customer service last week, and I'm grateful to everyone that took the time to ring the Manx Utilities. The team are there willing to help, so if the people have got concerns, got questions, ring the team and we'll do everything to do to help.
OK, we're going to go back to the lines now, Rob, and we've got Wilf on line 1 to talk about wind power. How are you doing, Wilf?
Hi, all right. It's very quick. I've been on before a couple of times about this. It's just a suggestion. a number of years ago, the wind farm people across asked about putting wind farms in our waters. And we said no, because we wanted to rent the seabed to them or whatever. I think we should forget that and say, yes, you can put them in our waters, but you stick in our waters enough wind farms to run the Isle of Man. Then after that, you can put as many as you like up, as long as we get free electric. And the other thing I wanted to say was the 42 million, going to pump that into the electric board and in the gas board. Simple as that. Because I'm a very simple person.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Will, for that. I mean, with regard to our seabeds, that is an ongoing discussion about how we actually utilise those seabeds, how we can maximise our income. But this is part of, as I said before, a suite of options that we're going to have to look at. How does the Isle of Man generate its electricity? Will it be through wind? Will it be through solar? Will it be through the AC connectors? You know, how do we actually make sure that the supply on the Isle of Man is continuous to meet our needs? But I think there is these discussions about how we can maximise potential income from our wind farms within the Isle of Man 12-mile radius. So, yeah, discussions are ongoing. I'm very pleased with the amount of projects that I've been invited to see. I just hope that we can try and manage all that expectation and for the government to try and work out very quickly how we actually generate electricity in the future.
If we became energy self-sufficient, couldn't we then become an exporter, and that would give us another source of revenue? Absolutely. I mean, if that was a conversation only last week we had, you know, what happens, because the amount of schemes that I've been invited to look at, it's more than the island needs for its own needs. So the question is, can we export electricity? But you've got to remember, it's not a case of just putting electricity into the grid. Somebody's got to want it. And so you then have to talk about the storage. So you may have to store it until you need it. So these are all discussions that are going on, especially with the Transformation Board, especially within government, because just because we make electricity and we then put it into the grid and then maybe transfer it to the UK, there's no guarantee that the UK needs it themselves. So these are all of the things that we've got to discuss over the next few years. I suppose looking at the overall picture, with the cost of living being so much higher over here than the UK, what discussions have you had with Comin about such significant electricity price rises making the island even more unattractive at the moment as a place to live?
I think if you compare us to the UK, the Isle of Man's not looking too bad. If you take electricity, I mean, as I say, I've put on record my sincere thanks to everybody at the MUA in the last 18 months to try desperately to think about businesses, to think about its domestic customers, how it impacts on them, especially over the winter months. But if you're looking at the cost, we know at the moment, for the very rare occasion, petrol on the Isle of Man is significantly cheaper than what you'll find in the UK. Food costs is normally another one. So these are all pressures that are coming down the line, but we're not much worse than the UK at the moment.
But the trouble is, we all seem to be cushioned for a little while, and then we do get hit with it, don't we? And it is coming.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I've actually said in the last few months that I think it's a very difficult period for the islands, and this is just the overall cost of food supply. Will we see food shortages? Will we be able to get the basic foods, the ingredients and everything else we need every day in a basket of goods? But it's all about the energy costs as well. We've got to find a way through this. And, the increase that we're applied, we work it out on an average user, it'll be about £1.50 a week for the first 15%, and then another £1.50 a week for the second increase. As soon as it is viably possible, we will bring those prices down. We're very proud that we only set our prices at the minimum level that we need to operate. As soon as we get an opportunity, we will bring them down. But given the market prices at the moment, that could be considerably into the future at the moment.
Because, I mean, obviously we're having these price rises at a time when it's actually getting lighter outside, so people don't need to potentially use their electricity as much. But heading into the next winter, who knows where we're going to be?
Well, I'm hoping that the price, where we were at Christmas, 750 pence a unit, we're now down to around 250, but that's still 5 times. Hoping that price will come down even further over the next few months.
OK, let's go back to the lines now. And on line 1 is Robbo. How are you doing, Robbo?
All right, not bad.
What would you like to talk about?
I was just wanting to ask Rob if he knows what percentage we're paying on our fuels, gas, petrol, diesel, because with the fuel prices going up, And if they're taxing it, obviously they're going to be making more money on the tax. They're taxing it on. So in theory, you'd think they would drop the percentage what they're putting the tax on to make it easier on the working class. You know, people are having to pay or go without and go cold, rather than the choice of food or fuel.
Robbo, I think you're right. The UK have announced they're looking at dropping the fuel duty to help people. I think I don't have the percentages in front of me to what percentage tax, but I know it's a considerable amount. I think it's almost 60 or 70%. It is incredibly high amount. So if the UK, because we do have this shared arrangement with the UK, so if the fuel prices in the tax in the UK drops, then the Isle of Man will certainly follow suit that.
So basically, we copy the UK then?
Well, it's a shared pool because there's certain services on the Isle of Man in which are collective between the Isle of Man and the UK, and we get a percentage back. So one of them, I'm certain, is fuel, petrol at the pumping station. That will be collected, and we will get something back. So if the price does reduce or the tax reduces, the Isle of Man will almost certainly follow suit on that.
Okay, Robbo, thank you very much indeed. What about VAT on electricity prices, Rob? What do we pay? Is it 5%?
Yes, I think it's 5%, yes.
Would we consider maybe knocking that on the head for a little bit to give people a bit of breathing space?
We're still, and again, I'm only doing this of memory, as far as I'm aware, the UK, I think they paid 20%, so we're still significantly better than the UK. And as I say, if you compare what's happening to the UK of an average bill in the UK, the Isle of Man is still significantly less than that, but that doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge the pain, especially on the back of COVID. The businesses are suffering, businesses that are trying to regroup, and again on the back of a 27.5% increase on Manx gas. That's why we desperately tried not to increase anything during the winter, because we knew people were using electricity as an alternative heating source, and we've done, as I've said, we hedged last year 70%. We've done everything to protect, but the price unfortunately has still not come down to the level where we can actually get back to some stability.
Okay, a couple more text messages now then. Text ending in 284. Can you please ask Mr Callister why he voted against Manx gas regulations in Tynwald and how that benefits Onchan voters?
Okay, I'm happy to answer that. I mean, I voted against it because of the timing. Am I in favour of regulation? Absolutely I am, especially in this market. But at the time, I felt that leaders, and that includes myself, so that's your Tynwald members, Cura, who's the regulator, and the Council of Ministers should have implemented a level of leadership to navigate the way through this pricing crisis and then introduce the regulation. I mean, if you take the Manx utilities, it took us 5 months to set this rate, and that took a lot of discussions with the Council of Ministers, with Treasury, with other stakeholders. So it's taken us a long time, and I just feel we've passed this the bucket over to the Cura, who's the regulator. The Cura will look at the data and then said this is the price that we recommend. It's up to Manx Gas then to actually to implement it or not to implement it. I just feel, because we're in the middle of a crisis, we should show a level of leadership.
Just one quick question before we go back to the lines. This is from Chris. Can you ask Rob if the people that have solar panels supplying the grid, will they get this 30% increase, and if not, why not?
I'm not sure of that question, if I'm being perfectly honest. I know I'm not sure if Chris wants to contact me, rob.callister@gov.im. I will gladly pick that question up and ask the MUA team just to respond directly.
OK, let's go back to the lines. We've got Tony on line 1. Hello, Tony.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr Callister. I have a couple of questions. One, where did you get the 5 years development time for Kroger to develop a gas field that's just offshore? That's the first question. The second question is, was it actually discussed that Kroger could be an option, or was it just ignored because the decision was made we want to go renewable? And the third thing I have to say is that if you go renewable, you seem to be ignoring building reservoirs, which is probably going to be the long-term, most effective additional green energy. Wind farms will cost and take a long time. Wave power and sea power is going to be difficult because you need an extremely large area for sea power, and you need to have the right conditions for tidal. So I don't see how they are solutions. And the interconnectors is simply going to make the cost that you pay more, because you're going to pay UK electricity prices plus the cost of putting in an interconnector. Any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'll try and go through some of those. the Crogger field, again, I've got to switch hats here now. As an MHK, from the presentations I've attended, from the articles I've read, Crogger themselves have said it will take somewhere around 4 to 5 years before they start drilling in the ground. A personal opinion, I think the Isle of Man will have moved significantly on, but that doesn't mean that the viability of this site isn't there for the Isle of Man to help and support. That's a conversation for another day. As an MHK, I will look at the evidence when it's presented to me, see what is in the best interest of the island. Can the Isle of Man, does it create jobs? Does the Isle of Man get taxed, etc.? But from this energy crisis that we currently sit in, Tony, it will not help us get through this, because even if it's 18 months, 2 years away, we need to get through the energy crisis that we have today. With regard to renewables, I've attended, I think, 4 presentations on site with regard to solar projects and wind projects, and each one of those has said they could potentially be up and running within 18 months. That will add into the renewable program. That's their agenda, that's their timescale, not mine. So the question is, how do we help them, support them? But we've got to look at our infrastructure. We've got to look at how we bring the electricity in. What rate they want to, what sort of rate of return they want, what price we're willing to return. But it is really about the system, how we improve the system to allow this electricity to come into our grid. I think you're right about tidal. I think the technology around tidal is still a little bit out. And wind discussions, I haven't had too much conversations on wind projects other than one, and that's on island, not off island or offshore. And that scheme, they reckon it's only a small scheme, could be up and running within 18 months. So they're the timescales that I've been given as the MUA chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tony. We're just going to go back to line 2 because Robbo is back on the line. Sorry, Robbie, did we cut you off in mid question?
I had one more question to ask.
Yep, go on then.
It's to do with the government green grant scheme. And the question is, a lot of people have applied. I've applied, a load of other friends have applied. And everyone has had the same automated message back saying we'll be in touch in 6 months. And obviously the list is going to get bigger and people are going to have to wait longer. I was just wondering how many people work in that department and what do they actually do?
Robbo, can I just clarify, you're talking about the Green Living Grant that's run by DFE and not Manx Utilities?
Oh, it's nothing to do. Okay then.
Okay, it's all right. No, it's okay. I'm actually a member of DFE, and we've just had this conversation this morning in our department meeting. I think we've had over 132 applications processed. We do need to speed up the process to get these through. People do need the opportunity to lower their bills. So again, if you want to send me an email to rob.callister@gov.im, I will pick up your particular case or concerns you have, and I'll bring that into the department and ask them to respond directly.
That's it, because it's just because there's a department there, and as far as I can see, nothing's really getting done.
No, there's quite a few applications being. Yeah, the applications are going through. There's going to be a review of that whole scheme because the scheme was originally put together in DEFA. It was then transferred to DFE to administrate. I think the process needs to be speeded up. The application needs to be reviewed as well. So all of those reviews are happening as we speak.
Okay, Robbo. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. A lot of ground covered there, Rob, but essentially what we are really focused on now is those people who are going to struggle because of these price rises. You have mentioned that there are officers within MUA who will go out and see people and help them perhaps reduce their consumption. But in terms of financial support, what is going to be available for people who really are going to struggle over the next few months? Yeah,
I think it's, as I've said on previous interviews given, the Manx Utilities have done a really good job over the winter period. We've spent internally around £16 million shielding our customers over the last 12 months. And that equates to around £180 per customer, which I think I applaud. I know somebody was criticising that in the House of Keys, but I applaud that. I know the Treasury Minister has actually said he will be making a statement in April to try and see what additional help the Isle of Man government, and I welcome that. Again, I just repeat that if people are struggling, then I think there's a lot of things. Speak to our customer service team, which I'll give the number again, is 687675. Also take the opportunity to make an appointment with a home energy officer. But I also ask people to go onto our website, our social media platforms. There's lots of tips for keeping energy efficient. As well as that, I'll also say that when we introduce our smart meters, when they start coming through, that will allow people to manage their own usage as well. So we really desperately want to help our customers. We're pretty much in every single home on the island. We are absolutely there to help people. So if there's anyone struggling, please contact us. We'll do everything we can to help.
And Rob, I know we didn't get round to talking about the TT, but we did have a question saying, will the fair be over for this year's TT? We need something to look forward to.
That was actually discussed in DFE this morning. We're just making some inquiries, and I'm hoping as soon as we've got some clarity on a few points, I'll make sure there's a press release issued.
Wonderful. Rob Callister, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. If you've missed any part of this programme, you can listen back as a podcast at manxradio.com. The video will be on Manx Radio's social media channels as well. Tomorrow, I am heading to Ramsey Grammar School. I'll be talking to the sixth formers there about all sorts of issues. Really do hope you can join us then. But my thanks to Rob Callister for being here today, Ben Hartley for producing the video, and Barry Redfern, as ever, for producing the programme. Late lunch is next with Howard Kane. Whatever you're doing this afternoon, have a good one, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.